Recording in progress.
Good morning, dear Dharma friends. Well, we get another day. Little rain here today. Not a lot. I think all systems are functioning.
I think your volume's really low.
Is it low? Let me see what I can.
Yeah.
It's funny. It was low on the music too. Thank you, Tim. What about that? Is that any better?
Yep. Just right.
All right. Thank you. All right. There. That's better. I think there's adequate sound to Facebook and YouTube. That was Johann Sebastian Bach, the Goldberg Variations. My brother-in-law in my first marriage played the harpsichord very beautifully. He once gave us a rendition of that was quite something. Before that, it was the same old story. Our Michael Chopin, if I dare claim him as ours. The inevitable, inexorable spirit of love is triumphant. So I have a poem. It's a short poem. It's an old poem, Rumi. I think it's Rumi. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doorsill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doorsill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. I think my favorite line in here is, you must ask for what you really want. And my understanding of spiritual discipline is that we do that which it is that we really, 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 really want. There's lots of superficial desires and fantasies, but what is it we really want? So let us pause. Take a comfortable, upright posture. The posture of training, the posture of awakening, the posture of Siddhartha sitting underneath the Bodhi tree. The posture which is here now. The journeyer on the path to awakening goes to a quiet place. They sit themselves down, comfortably upright. They abandon covetousness and grief concerning the world. They let go of the past and future as best they can. And placing mindfulness before them, they notice the breathing in of a short breath, the breathing out of a short breath, the breathing in of a long breath, the breathing out of a long breath. In fact, as a turner, a person working at a lathe knows when they do a long turn, they know, I'm doing a long turn. And when doing a short turn, they know, I'm doing a short turn. So it is that the meditator becomes aware of the details, the intention, the beginning and ending of breathing in and breathing out. And we actually attend to, inhabit, embrace the fact of a physical body. Matter. Atoms and molecules borrowed from the earth for a little while. And so the breath becomes the closest friend of a lifetime. Sometimes the mind becomes very tranquil. The 7 factors of enlightenment grow and mature. And we discover the concentration on the breath is rather profound. There is equanimity with it and a kind of tranquility. A spontaneous delight in a way, maybe delight in the body. Such times are very encouraging, faith-building. Other times the mind is visited by the 5 hindrances, and there's wanting something, there's desire. The present moment is experienced as inadequate. Or there is disliking, there is the mind experiencing the present moment as aversive. There is our familiar compatriot, restlessness, agitation, and worry, thinking. There can be sleepy dullness, sloth and torpor, falling asleep. Or that powerful hindrance, skeptical doubt. When yesterday or a few moments ago we might have had great faith in the practice, our journey inward might impact a pocket of doubt. It's difficult to sit in doubt. Why bother? But we learn to. We learn to use all of these activities of mind for the benefit of awakening, because they are all subject to mindfulness, to concentration, to investigation. And so we said, no matter what's happening, it is worthy of observation. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. We awaken in the various trance states. Memories, plans, obsessions. Some creative idea we just can't wait to embrace. Some worry, some liking, some craving for something, some striking where the mind strikes against, disliking. The self exercising itself. And somehow, in the midst of all that, mindfulness blossoms. Mindfulness awakens. And really nothing more is needed. The awakening, the seeing, the knowing is the doing. And with the breath, our home base, training object, mindfulness remembers, that's my intention, to be with the breath. And so there's what is called initial application, coming back to the breath. And then there is sustained application, which is the gentle, effortless effort to stay there. This moment is exactly as it is. We can notice any subtle or not so subtle attempts to have it be different. There is a gentle effort of a sort, that of coming home to breathing. And we do that with the greatest of delicacy. An image I like is that awareness lands on the breath with the delicacy of a butterfly landing on a flower. There is absolutely no coercion or violence. The whole thing takes place in an atmosphere of loving ourselves. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. As we sit longer, discomforts may well arise. There can be itches, there can be thirst, there can be that old familiar ache in the back, or maybe the recent surgery pain. And there can also be, of course, the pain of loss and aloneness, and the pains of the heart, as we call them. The pain of watching a loved one decline. The pain of one's own losses. If we dare to wake up, we will encounter more love, more compassion, more joy, more beauty than we ever dreamed possible. And it comes with a price, which is awareness of the whole catastrophe of human life. And so along with insight, along with mindfulness, Along with love, we cultivate compassion. Whenever I'm hurting, no matter how. Even if I think it's, quote, my own fault, close quotes. I aspire to hold myself in sweet compassion. For those of us here on Zoom where we can see one another, please let's take a moment to do just that. What if it's true that there really is only one consciousness? And that each of us is a manifestation of that. There's something very powerful that happens when eyes meet. Consciousness meeting consciousness. Seeing. Seeing and knowing it. Pleasure, liking. I also like to observe how there are some people here that not many, but some I've never met in person, and that's a different experience than those that I have met, that I have direct relationship with. Some here I've known for years, and the associations are deeper, more complex. Thank you for making the effort to come this morning. I have one announcement I want to make, which is from Candle. The sign up for the Women's Circle is occurring now. You can find it on the website, I believe. Oh, and we're going to have a new website within the month. It's really in process. We've had several meetings about it, and Molly, Gregory Malouf's wife, Molly, is really into it. She's working hard on it. In fact, I'm remiss. She sent me an email on Friday with a calendar she wants to use, so I will do that this morning. Anyway, the Women's Circle sign up. It's limited to 16 people. It starts on May 20th. It's the third Friday of each month, and it is a circle for female identified and non-binary folks to gather for meditation and moments of sharing their meditative experiences and questions in a circle together on Zoom. One does not have to come for every session, though it is helpful and encouraged to do so. So there's that. And that's really all I want to do in terms of announcements. I'm glad to be alive today. I'm going to spend, I don't know how long, actually. I hope it doesn't take forever, but I am leaving on Thursday morning on a plane for Vancouver and then on to Whitehorse in the Yukon, where I'm teaching a retreat this weekend. 20 people coming to a forest place where there's no electricity. So it's all wood heat. And it was interesting. I was planning to take my whole PA system, and that's pointless. So it's a pretty small room, so I think that'll be fine. But anyway, Jim will be teaching on Sunday morning, and the various teachers of PIMC will be continuing this morning meditation. It's quite a trip to get to the Yukon. You know, it's way up there. You take off from Vancouver. I've done it quite a few times. And I've got a little coterie of students up there. And you leave from Vancouver, and I get a seat on the right side of the plane because you see the mountains from there. And it's snowy mountains, and then you take a little nap, and it's snowy mountains, and you take another little nap, and it's snowy mountains for 2.5 to 3 hours north. It's quite something. It's snowy there, quite snow. They had -10, I think, Celsius a few days ago. So I'll take my woolies, so to speak. So I wonder if you have something you'd like to share this morning. Anybody?
Good morning, Sangha. Good morning, Robert. It's Michael.
Hello, Mr. Michael.
Hi. I think I heard you say that you played Same Old Story this morning.
I did.
Okay. I wanted to share a story about that song, if I may.
Sure.
There's a piece in it toward the end that says that the spirit of love lives in the oppressor and the torturer and the murderer and the brother. And that was inspired by a man named Muhammad. I don't know his last name. He was a reporter for a newspaper in Iraq when Saddam Hussein was, the dictator of that country. And Muhammad was writing a lot of editorials against the regime. So he was thrown into prison, of course. And he was tortured and starved for a very, very long time. And after the first or second session of being tortured, he decided to pray for his torturer. We would call it giving metta. And so he just prayed for this man every day for months and months, and then without any conversation. And then finally the man started to speak to him. And he talked about how difficult his life was, and he talked about that he wasn't making enough money to take care of his family, and one of his kids was always sick, and he just started talking. And Muhammad listened, and then he asked questions, and that went on for months and months. And then the torturer started to bring Muhammad food and saved his life that way. And finally, Muhammad was able to convince him to take a message out of the prison, which he did, and he got to somebody who brought it to Amnesty International, who got Muhammad out. So that part of the song is inspired by Muhammad, and I was thinking about what you were saying. Is it developing compassion and what's the other one you said? Being aware of the catastrophe of life and developing compassion anyway. So whenever I hear that song or I play it, I think of him. And then I think of how important his suffering was and how important his survival was to me and to the world. And I know that when people hear that song, they are moved. And they're moved because of Muhammad. And so the presence of love and the presence of life in these people that we call strangers is intricately part of who we are. And I love honoring that, and I love being made aware of it as much as possible.
Thank you, Michael. I think it might be an opportune moment to hear that song, actually. I think I've got it here easily. Did I? Here it is. So I invite us to listen with the heart, with the context that Michael just shared with us as well. So this comes on, this comes up. That's not it. That's the Goldberg variations.
It's the same old story. You can't open a newspaper these days or turn on a TV news show without being instantly hammered by some obscenity. People doing this to each other, people doing that. It's messy. I remember the first time I heard the phrase, life's a mess. It was my father talking about the assassination of Medgar Evers, then later Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And I heard my grandparents say it, talking about the Great Depression and the Newark neighborhood where they lived and where my grandfather ran his drugstore. I'm sure their parents said it too, before the turn of the century, deep in Eastern European mountains, dreaming of the promised land. I bet even the cavemen said it, griping about a rival tribe, or some stegosaurus meat that went bad. But life's a mess. Life's a mess. Still somehow in all that darkness, light seems always to find itself again. Then there's hope, and sometimes even glory. I was listening to a ball game once. A Texas Ranger hit a foul ball into the stands, and a man caught it and gave it to a young boy sitting several seats away. The young boy high-fived the man, and I heard the radio announcer say, "Those two are strangers. Look at how beautiful they're being." Martin Luther King said, "The evil triumphant is somehow weaker than goodness defeated." Malcolm X said, "Peace be unto you. Peace be unto you, peace be unto you." The inevitable, inexorable spirit of love is triumphant. The inevitable, inexorable spirit of love is triumphant. The inevitable, inexorable spirit of love is triumphant, and it lives in you, my oppressor, and it lives in you, my torturer, and it lives in you, my murderer, and it lives in you, my brother, and we all live in each other. The inevitable, inexorable spirit of love. The inevitable, inexorable spirit of love. The inevitable, inexorable spirit of love is triumphant.
Thank you, Michael. Michael Shohan and Brad Andrews singing that beautiful song. Anything else you want to say about it, Michael?
I guess I'd like to add one more thing. It's not about the song, but I've got a friend who's got one of these metal detecting things where he can find stuff in the ground.
Yeah.
And he's just finding all these things everywhere, all these things that people left after they died. And it just makes me think about the lives that we live. We're literally walking on the lives that preceded us. And those lives are very present in our lives. And the things that they accomplished and the insights that they had, you know, they're part of us and we're walking on them. And personally, for me, that just gives me a lot of personal stability when things feel like they're just in collapse or free fall, that there's a long story here, and what precedes supports what's here. And the more I find that I'm aware of that, the less unhappy I am. So I'm very appreciative to that spirit of life and everything, and also specifically to Mohammed, who survived that and became a great influence to a lot of people.
Pamela asked how to access that song. Do you have an easy way, Michael?
You know what I'm going to do, Robert? I've got about 40 copies of that CD here, and I'm going to get them down to you. And You can sell them as a fundraiser for PIMC, and people can get them through PIMC.
That's it.
That sound good?
That sounds lovely. And
Great.
I will I do this? I should write it down. There's probably a more sophisticated way of doing this, but there's a way I know how to do it. I believe I can. I will put that song in Dropbox, and I will put a link to it in my website, in the blog of my website today. I don't have the ability to put it into the chat right now because it's not there. So I'll do that. So look in my blog tonight. That's robertbeatty.com, and then just look for the thing at the top that says blog, and I'll get that in there.
Can I send you the CDs anyway?
Oh yes. Oh please. In addition to that, yeah. There's people who would like that now, and you know how greed is. I want it now. Sure, that's a great idea, Michael.
Great. Sounds good.
Anything more from anyone? Hello, Jilly. What's the weather report up there?
Well, we were a bit appalled this morning to wake up to it snowing.
Good grief.
I know. We were almost plus 10 yesterday. Everything's in full melt.
Wow.
Yeah. And now this morning it's snowing again.
Well, I'll bring my warm clothes.
Good. Do that. We'll talk more about that when we chat this morning.
Right. Okay. Anything else, anybody, you're discovering on your journey through life? The inevitable, inexorable spirit of love. What's that link on YouTube for, Mike, David?
That was from your tent days. You played his song at the end, and that link takes you to the end of that morning session where you play the song.
Oh, okay. So that's a way to get it.
Yep.
I think
not necessarily as high quality as what will come from your link because it was during your tent days.
Oh, right, the tent days. I remember the tent. You know, the place on the lawn that died under the tent is now the most luxurious part of the lawn. I put new grass in there, and there's a circle of really beautiful green grass. Tent days. This is sure a nice little house I have for this.
Good morning. This is Janice.
Hey, Janice.
I just returned from 5 days in New Orleans, and in the French Quarter, there's a lot of suffering there. Lots of joy, craziness. But I was just thinking, all of that suffering, what does engaged Buddhism look like when you're in a situation like that? people laying on the street, vomit and peeing everywhere and suffering, needing something to eat. I don't know. The longer I was there, the more lonely I felt, and there's just this rush of people. I don't know. It's a tough place to be in. Just don't know how to process all of that.
It is. It's a pretty that with that main street there is a pretty intense place of desperation. People trying to be happy, to have happiness, and drinking a lot, and it's a pretty tough spot. Yeah. And so I don't really know what to say, but I can tell you that I experience. I went out one night when I was there with Jennifer, and she didn't want to go out, and I went out down to the whatever that main street is, and I felt like I was on an anthropological expedition into dukkha. And if you'd asked most of the people that were there, they would have, some of them anyway, they were having a wonderful time because they were pretty drunk, and some of the music was pretty good. That was nice. But there is something that happens that as we become sensitized, we see the disappointment in people's lives differently. And that's where as the heart of compassion opens, we can become fried by it if we don't simultaneously develop equanimity and also wisdom. And in equanimity, there's the four Brahma Viharas. There's the practice of love, where there's room for everything. There's the practice of compassion, where may all beings be free from suffering. There's the practice of sympathetic joy, which is taking delight in the happiness of oneself and others. And then there's the practice of equanimity, which is in a certain way, a vocabulary that helps me a lot is that this is the way of the world. It is not by my wishing or hoping or working or something that people have the results of their karma, and then we can compassionately do what we can do, but we don't have to go down the drain into overwhelm and despair, which helps no one. But instead we can realize, yes, this is the way of the world. This has always been happening. It's treading on thin ice, I think, but like Sunday morning, or I forget, I was teaching a group in Edmonton the other day, and I was talking about the catastrophe that's happening in Ukraine, and the catastrophe that's happening in Russia, with all the propaganda and their young men are being massacred, and whole populations are being propagandized, and the same catastrophe is happening here. And also there's always been war. There was a lot of war at the time of the Buddha. At the time of the Buddha's death, he was in a war zone. So war is not an unnatural phenomenon for humans. We are prone to it. And I really thought in my 20s, and I guess my 30s too, I really thought in an inflated sort of way that my generation was the one that would end war, and where we would share equitably and so on. And I failed miserably. But that doesn't mean we can't do our little bit to bring love into the world, and the inevitable, inexorable spirit of love is triumphant. But it's hard. I hear you. And you, Janice, particularly, your practice is opening you up, and you're becoming more tender. And so it's really important that you develop your concentration also, that you can have concentration and not go to those places in the mind. And then when you do, to recognize, yes, this is the way of the world. Or it's a way of the world. There's also beauty and kindness and tons of kindness. I struggled for decades trying to come to terms with something that it sounds profoundly naive now, and I guess it was, but I really wanted to believe that the leaders of our country and other countries, that they were really wise, loving people who were going to do their best to help us. And then I discovered about psychopathy and mental illness and sociopaths, and I realized, but it took a long time to realize that the Buddha said in one of his earliest sermons, it's called the Fire Sermon, he said the world is on fire. And it's because of the human mind. And it's true. So can we use the fire and the disappointment and the wars and all that to help us wake up and become more compassionate and loving? And not to fall into despair. Well, friends, anybody else have anything you'd like to say? Well, let us sing our way home. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Well, goodbye, my beautiful friends. I hope you have a fine, mindful day.
Goodbye.
With some real delight. How about that? Find something to delight in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, David. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
Thank
friends.
you.